Hi everyone. Welcome back to another Python tutorial. In this video, I will walk you through how to build a cool rock, paper, scissors game in Python using PyGame. We will create a nice looking GUI which updates the score of the player and the computer, and we will also include images to show which option the player and the computer have chosen. You will learn how to use dictionaries in an efficient way to make the code compact and clear. And for those who stick around until the very end, I have one very useful extra feature for you. Two fundamental concepts in PyGame are the display and the event loop, which together form the core of any PyGame application. The display in PyGame is where all the graphical content of your game is rendered. It acts as the canvas on which you draw images, shapes, and text. Setting up the display involves creating a display surface, which is essentially a window or screen where all the visual elements will be rendered. The event loop is the backbone of any PyGame application and is nothing more than a simple while loop. It continuously runs, listening for user input such as key presses, so-called events, and updates the game state accordingly. This loop keeps the game interactive and responsive. For this project you will have to install PyGame. A simple way to do this is to type cmd in the search bar and open the command prompt. In the command prompt, type pip install PyGame. When that is done, you are ready to start coding. First, let's start by importing the necessary modules. We'll need PyGame for the game framework and random for the computer's choice. Next, we need to initialize the PyGame modules and set up our game window. We define the dimensions of the window and also add a caption. For this game, we will use for different colors. On colorhunt.co you can find lots of different cool color palettes. I have chosen this particular one, but feel free to experiment and look around for something that fits your style. And when you find something you like, simply hover over the color and copy this hex color code. We will also use three different fonts. Font 1 being the largest and font 3 being the smallest. Let's choose the font name Arial and also set the largest font to bold. Now, let's set up some game variables to keep track of the player's choice, the computer's choice, and the scores. We initialize by setting the string variables to none and the integer variables to 0. To make the game nice to look at, we will use images to display the choice of the player and the computer. In the video description you can find a link to my GitHub repository where you can download the images I use for this tutorial. There, I have also included two other color variants if you want to spice it up a little. Otherwise you can always create them yourself. I used PowerPoint where I simply inputted a colored rectangle as background and inserted a symbol on top of it and thereafter saved the slide as a PNG file. Create a folder named Images in the same directory as your Python file and put your images inside of it. Now, let's define a function draw_text with 4 parameters. Text for the string of text you want to render. Font for a PyGame font object that defines the font style and size. Color for the color of the text, and X and Y for the coordinates for the center position where the text will be rendered on the screen. We use the font.render method to transform the provided text string into a graphical representation stored as a surface. This surface contains the rendered text, adhering to the font style and color specified in the function parameters. Next, we create a rectangle. This rectangle is sized to fit the dimensions of the rendered text and is centered at. What do you think? That's right, centered at the coordinates provided as arguments to the function. By centering the rectangle, the text is positioned accurately relative to the given coordinates, ensuring proper alignment on the screen. Finally, the rendered text surface is blipped onto the main display window using the blip method. Blitting is just another word for rendering objects. This process involves copying the contents of the text surface onto the window surface, with the position determined by the previously created rectangle. Here is the definition from PyGame's documentation. Now we create the draw image function for rendering and displaying images on the screen at specified coordinates. We start by retrieving the dimensions of the original image using the get_size method. To maintain the image proportions when later scaling it, we need to calculate the ratio between the original height and width. Using the pygame.transform.scale function, the original image is resized to fit within a predetermined bounding box. In this case, the width of the scaled image is set to 150 pixels, while the height is adjusted proportionally based on the calculated ratio. And what is the final step, do you think? That's right, we blit the scaled image onto the main display window at the provided coordinates. Next, let's create the draw function, which will be responsible for rendering and displaying the game interface on the screen. Start by filling the entire window with the background color we defined before. We use the draw_text function that we created to render and display some text instructions. Now we will do something cool, so listen closely. We create a dictionary called choices where we use strings as keys and the corresponding image as the value. That means that if we for instance call choices _rock_, the dictionary will return the variable rock_ing, which we have defined earlier as the Pygame surface object that represents the image loaded from the file images rock.png. We check if the player has chosen an option by writing if player_choice. In that case, we display it on the screen. To input the image of the choice that the player has chosen, what do you think we should use as key in the dictionary here? The answer is player_choice. Maybe a tricky one, but pause the video and make sure you understand why. We then do the same for the computer option. The game variables player_choice and computer_choice will either be the string rock, paper or scissor. It is only in the beginning they will be none. Then nothing will be displayed. Result is also set to none in the beginning. However, as the event loop starts, it will update depending on the choice of the player and the computer. If the result is not none, display the result. To enhance the visual appeal of the score display, we'll create a rectangle as a background. We then place the text inside of it. To include the scores in the text string, we can use a so-called F string like this. Simply write an F before the quotation mark and put the variable in curly brackets. As usual, we put in the font, text color, and text position. Finally, update the display window. Now, let's define a function to determine the outcome of a single round of the rock, paper, scissors game. It takes two parameters, the choice of the player and the choice of the computer. Inside the function, use the global keyword to declare that it will modify two variables, player_score and computer_score, which are defined outside the function. These variables keep track of the scores for the player and the computer. Next, define another dictionary called win_conditions. This dictionary represents the winning conditions for the game. For example, rock beats scissors, paper beats rock, and scissors beats paper. The function then compares the choices made by the player and the computer to determine the result of the round. If the player's choice is the same as the computer's choice, it's a tie. If the player's choice beats the computer's choice based on the win_conditions, the player wins. For example, win_conditions, rock, returns scissors since rock beats scissors. If that equals what the computer has chosen, then the player is the winner. If neither of the previous two conditions are true, the computer wins. Then we update the score of either the player or the computer depending on the result. Now we only have one step left, and that is to create the event loop. We set a variable run to true. This variable will control the main loop of the game, while run ensures that the game continues running as long as run is true. Iterate over all the events, user inputs, system events, etc. that are currently in the event queue. We create a condition that checks if the user has clicked the close button of the game window. If so, set run to false. That will exit the game loop and end the game. Next, we check if a key has been pressed. If the player has either pressed R for rock, P for paper or S for scissors, set the player_choice variable to the corresponding choice. Then we generate a random choice for the computer. And as a last step, we call the determine_winner function to determine the winner of the round based on the player's and computer's choices. Call the draw function for rendering and updating the game interface on the screen. It draws the game's visuals, including the player's and computer's choices, the result, and the scores. Click Run and a window like this should pop up. And as we wanted, when I press the R, P, and S keys, it updates the game choices and scores. Fun! Alright, folks, time for the grand finale. Here's a little trick to add some extra magic to our game. By adding this function and these two lines to our event loop, you'll be able to reset the scores to 0 by simply pressing the escape key. Pretty cool, right? Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed making this rock, paper, scissors game, make sure to show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing for more tutorials. Also, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to explore more mini projects now, feel free to click the video right here. I'll see you next time. Until then, I wish you all some bug-free coding.